Peace squad, welcome back to this tutorial. So by the end of this tutorial, you will have a Google Sheets pseudo database representation of a digital marketing directory database. So if you're new to this series, we've been building a Thumbtack clone. In the beginning of our series, we went over a lot of the design elements, and now we're in the database or backend design phase. In our previous video, we started to think about what fields we need in order to store the information on our digital marketing agency in a dynamic way. All right. So in this video, I'm going to go over basically the final fields that we came up with in the final tables for our test database. All right. So basically the order of operation, I've said this in a previous video, when I'm developing and you're still trying to finalize the structure, I highly recommend first just representing your database as like a spreadsheet, and just imagining that each one of these are tables and like the whole spreadsheet together is a database. It'll help you like logically like think through like how to represent the models. And then what I do from here is, you guys will see this in our future video, is I like to then represent this as like Python dictionaries. It gives me the flexibility to like kind of still test things out, and then I'll create Python classes. You can use whatever language you want. I come from Python. It's the easiest for me, so that's like my go-to language. That's the primary language we're going to be using in these tutorials, is Python, SQL, and of course for full stack courses we'll also be covering HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all that. But for back end, my primary language is Python. I am from data science, and that's my primary language. Okay, so as I was saying, as I'm developing and as you guys are trying to think through the database design, which is so crucial, and notice that I actually have a data dictionary, you will thank yourself so much if before you begin creating data tables and applications, if you take the time to actually like organize and document like how the database is going to be structured. Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, like, it's so challenging, and I've like had my own experience with this. It's so challenging, like once you've already started managing data, to like go back and try to clean up the structure of your database, because you kind of just like slap stuff together to begin with. So to recap, what I recommend is like first I'll represent the database as like just like a Google spreadsheet, and just have the different tabs be like, you know, represent my tables, so I can like think through like, okay, what should these fields, like how should I begin to like represent the models that's necessary. And then from there I move on to like Python dictionaries and classes. So first I'll like create just like a Python dictionary of like, it'll be like a list of dictionaries, and in a dictionary so it'll be like a key pair value, and it'll represent the different fields. From there, once I feel pretty confident, I'll move on to like actually creating like a Python class. So then that like these are objects, and I'll like play around with those, and then I'll feel good about that. So once like that is in place, I'm like, all right, cool. Like the structure seems fine. Then I'll move on to creating SQLite database. So I'll actually like use the class that we created up here, and I'll actually like create a SQLite. I like SQLite database. Like SQLite is a like on file, in file database, meaning when SQLite is created, it's just like created like right here as like a database. Where is it? We didn't create it yet, but it would be like something.db right here once we create this over here. And the most challenging part when you're creating the structure and design of databases is when you are still trying to figure out the structure, you're still playing around with it. Sometimes if you like have it in like, you know, Postgre already, when you're trying to alter the table structure, it can just get like really challenging. When you have SQLite, you can just like delete the database and just recreate it. It's in file, it's on file. So I like to go to SQLite next. So after I create like the Python dictionaries and classes, the next thing I do is actually create a SQLite database. Once I've had practice like inserting values into the SQLite database and querying the SQLite database, and I feel pretty good about the structure, then I'll finally move on to creating the table in Postgres like we did here. So then I'll move on to actually creating the table in Postgres, and then I'll have my different queries where we're creating the database structure, where we're loading the database, and then we're also querying the database. This is still going to be on my local server as a test database. And as you'll see in the video where I'm about to go into detail, like the first version of my database is still like, the data is like very load friendly, I'll call it. There's not nearly as many foreign keys, there's not nearly as many restrictions. When you're first trying to load your data, like that final database where like you are very strict about how things are loaded, how things are updated, how things are structured, it's really hard sometimes, in my experience, most of the time, to go from like raw data to get your to like get your data structure in a way to where it'll neatly fit into a very strict database. So I think like some of the experts have even switched, instead of like ETL, they'll go like ELT. Well, like you extract the data, you load the data, and then you transform it, because like it's just gotten so challenging trying to like properly structure your data. So it's almost easier, and like I say, you guys will see this when I go through like the actual like structures of this, where like, let's just load the data on the database in a way that's pretty neat and it's really easy, and then from there begin to clean and transform the data in like future versions of the database. Like, let's do this in iterations, right? Let's do this in small agile iterations, instead of trying to get this like perfectly neat database from the jump. All right, so sorry, that was a data nerd tangent. I really needed to just So in the next video, we're actually going to go through. So I've structured all these. These are the 12 tables that we're going to be using to create, to represent this model. So in our next video, I'll actually go through each of our tables and we will put in the respective fields. Okay. I will see you in the next tutorial.